connect with like-minded AHK users in our private chat, helping each other out and sparking ideas that make scripting way more fun. Get inspired by seeing fellow heroes apply AHK in everyday wins. The shared stories alone make membership a no-brainer.
Wanted to know, but
yeah. Good.
All
and
right.
then Jurgen, let's talk about Jurgen's question here. Well, issue real quick. If you want to explain a little more, Jurgen, about is it just that you can't connect to the DOM and you can't actually see the data? Is that?
I'm able to strip it. It's just a lot of stuff I do is with clients, and here I'll open some of it.
All
just
right.
noting, probably no recording on this one if you don't mind.
Well, we don't normally stop recording in the middle of the.
Here.
I can pause it for a moment. Hold on 1 second. Okay.
And that's applicable to like anything with like scraping web stuff.
Yeah, that's a very generalized topic. For example, it happens to me with banking information, right?
Yep.
So I'm in a banking page and I want to access some of the data that they have. One of the reasons why we don't do this sort of courses on that is because it depends, right?
Yep.
So depending on the security level of the page, you can imitate the browser. So the browser is getting the data somehow, right?
Exactly.
So one of the things that we could do is, hey, the browser is doing some API calls. Let me just do those same API calls. Mm-hmm. The one thing that we usually normally have problems with is authentication, right?
Yes.
And recently,
and if they stale and stuff like that.
Right. Now, recently, and I explained to Joe how I was able to fake it, right? And I can probably show that code. It is not.
But before you do, let's back up a step. When IE was a thing, it was so crazy simple because you just used the XHTML? Is that what it was?
Right. Yes.
And it used your cookies, and you could just anyway. It drove me nuts that that went away because it was so easy.
Yep.
Yes.
So now we've been not stumped because we've had to take other approaches to do it, but now Isaiah has a more robust way. However, that's where also Refadium allows you to connect to the DOM, and as long as you have admin rights on your computer, so you can install the drivers and stuff, then you might be able to see the stuff very easily. Also, but I'll let Isaiah talk through the imitating the performing API calls instead of actually loading the browser. Right.
So I will fake this for now. Let me just remove certain part here.
And by the way, on a different project, we had a friend, we're helping him scrape Google Maps stuff. And Irfan, I asked him to use Refadium to go in here and scrape the map stuff. And then I said, you know what? I have an API call that I used, and it was like 10 years ago for Google Maps with their APIs when I worked at TI. And I'm like, let me go look at what we did. We copied the functions from the V1 just to make sure we had them. The thing ran. I had to update the token, but the thing ran. Like, and this gets back to
exactly. It just doesn't change. Right. Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. It's such a amazing.
Exactly. So here's an interesting approach. So I have the program. I made it so that I just created a little bit of a login page. I have a username. You can type your password and you can click on login. What this login button does is that, first of all, it writes whatever you wrote as a username in the last username. The password, I just don't save it plain text. I just encode it somehow, put it somewhere. Then I grab the first page, the login page, and I capture the cookies. Mm. So I created this function called fetch. It's just imitating. Under the hood, what I'm just doing is HTTP requests, all right? But I created this function. I haven't shared it because I haven't tested it that much, all right? That's it. But one of the things that I made for it is that it captures the response, and it captures. I created an object called cookies, which is just a map, okay? And for them, if I get a string, I can parse that string and put it as key value pairs in this object. It's basically what it is, right? It's not a big deal. And whenever you're doing the requests, one of the things that you get on HTTP responses is the let me show you the response headers. That's it. So now the response headers. So whenever you do an HTTP request, they not only send you the HTML and whatever the response is, it could be JSON or HTML or whatever, but they send you a set of headers. In those headers, there's one of them that is the cookies. Like it just says set cookie. That's basically what the header says, all right? So I just parse the headers. They're just new lines. And for any of those that says set cookie, I just add the key value pair. It's something that you can figure out if you want, but the fetch function, I just wrote it for that so that I could, in my code, just say, hey, for my login cookies, just add the cookies, and it would just do what I mentioned it would do, right? Then, from those cookies that I just got, I'm going to make a secondary request to the login page, and in there, I'm going to pass part of one very important cookie, which is the XSRF token, because they need it. And then I pass all the cookies that they already gave me on the previous call. Because whenever I'm going to be doing this logging, they required me to have an XSRF token. And I figured out, oh, they give me that when I call this page. You see what I mean? Once I do the request, and in the body here, I'm passing the email and the password. There's the username, there's the password that I just typed in my login form. In this page is a post request, all right? And then when I get the status okay, I just grab the cookies that they return. And those cookies that they return usually are the authenticated cookies. So basically, I just faked the whole process of getting cookies back, right? Those cookies, then I write them somewhere, right? Again, if you want, you can base64 encode that or do whatever you want just to not write those down clearly there. And once you have those cookies, then that means that other HTTP requests that you're going to do in this app for historical data, I think I do that. Then when I'm going to go ahead and grab the historical data, which requires me to be logged in, then I pass my headers and I just grab the cookies that I had already and pass them here, and my XSRF token, which they also require. Those are the two parts. You see that?
Have you ever done something similar also with 2FA?
Two-factor authentication is a little bit trickier. You see that? That's where it becomes like,
yeah, because this site also has 2FA. The cookies expire after 24 hours, and then so I was thinking about like
no, but that's okay. But again, the whole thing can be done. In theory, can be done because the browser is doing it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So you see, the one thing is, how does it happen, right? So for 2FA, especially if it is like Google 2FA, it's trickier because when you say login, they send a request to Google, not to you. So you cannot really capture that.
So we have phone
easily.
Or we could do authenticator is usually our two options.
But once you hit OK, so you can have a script that when you hit authenticate with the Google or the 2FA, that authentication FA, like the authentication call that comes back, that's the one that you might want to catch, right? So in theory, it's possible. Again, each page has different security settings, and the one that I'm just explaining to you works when you can capture the cookies that way. One way that I was doing it with this client before I had this login page was I just told him, go to the page, go to your browser, log in, go to the page, copy the cookies and save them somewhere. And I just parse them, you know? Mm-hmm. So let me share my screen here real quick. Let me do
The other thing I was thinking about doing was just doing a GUI that's like a utility tool kind of thing, and it has like loaded snippets in it where I could just say like, hey, you wanted to download this versus you want to get history versus you want to get pictures, and it's just like
Hmm.
this add-on that's sitting there
Okay.
for my user. So like when they log in, they could just hit those one of those three buttons and get what they wanted.
Okay. I think I understand.
And Jurgen, do you use Fiddler? Have you ever used Fiddler?
I have not.
Okay, so
Oh,
when you
yeah.
get stuck, Isaias he's good enough where he can do everything, almost everything, I should say, in the network tab here.
Hmm.
Then
Yeah.
he'll get sometimes get stuck, and he's like, and part of it's to pick my brain, part of it's because maybe it's the only area that I'm even remotely close to Isaias as far as programming goes. So I'll be like, well, let's use Fiddler. The really, really cool thing about Fiddler is you can see both what's going on here with your browser, but you can
Hmm.
also see when AutoHotkey, when you're sending the stuff to the server, you can see what you're sending. So you can
Yes.
compare apples to apples of crap. I missed this thing, right? Like,
Right.
and it's usually when he gets stuck, that's usually we'll switch to it, and then he's like, oh, there was
That's very clear now.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Right. No, not only that, there is something that I noticed, Joe. You see this preserved log? If that is not enabled, and actually is also in the settings, that's something that I realized. If you're in the settings and where is it, security or something? I don't remember. Oh, no, is this settings or something like that? I don't know where it is now. But the point is, it is a setting that you have to turn on to not delete certain
Mm,
network stuff
hmm.
right here. So record network log and preserve it, something like that. Because the problem is logging requests, the browser deletes them right away when they happen.
Mm.
What doesn't happen with Fiddler. Fiddler doesn't delete them. They just record them and they're there. So basically, here, this is what I meant. Like, whenever you make any sort of request, in the headers tab, you have the response headers. Those are the headers that the server sent back to you saying, hey, this is what you have to do on your end. All right. Or this request is in gzip encoding or whatever. Some of those set cookies, some of them don't. It depends on what the request is. But not only that, here, if the request that you made is using some sort of cookies, here the request headers are going to contain the cookies, and I just grab all the cookies and copy paste them,
Yeah,
and then have
you helped
something
me
to
out with that
parse them.
from a client from 3 years ago. That was a very similar setup that we had to do.
Right. So it was a very annoying process of every time the cookie expired, I had to come here,
Yeah.
copy, paste. So that's where the logging page that I just mentioned comes into play. It just removed the need for me to look for the cookie. But when you factor in two-factor authentication, that becomes a little bit trickier there. I haven't actually done anything with two-factor authentication
Yeah,
up
I
to
think
that
I'm
point.
leaning towards the GUI add-on, so that way I could deploy this to other like
Right.
construction managers, and then that downloads in a specific file that like Power Query and Excel can easily look at, and it'd probably be
Right.
a little bit easier to disseminate some nerdiness and get more people to start using AutoHotkey.
Exactly. Yeah, that's another. In again, I do have this motto: like, just use the correct tool for the problem, right? So AutoHotkey is great for many things, but AutoHotkey is not great for web. Uh, Many web automation stuff that has to do with a lot of security, right?
Right.
So, but if you use something like Python, they have libraries that already handle two-factor authentication or something like that. Very likely, it could
Mhm.
be. So you could just use AI now. Just I don't Google anymore. I just tell AI, hey, I'm dealing with a website that has two-factor authentication. Does Python have a library that handles that kind of thing? Very likely somebody already spent the time to do that. Then tell AI to write it in Python. And if you need it in AutoHotkey, then you say, hey, let's convert this to AutoHotkey and so on.
So
But
are you saying that you'd be leaning against like a GUI, like an AutoHotkey GUI that has like the 3 snippets or 4 snippets that I need that just interjects it into console? Or is that not elegant?
how technical are people to actually know that they have to open the console and
They wouldn't
But
have to.
okay.
yeah, you're just doing it yourself, right?
Okay. All right. No, in that case, I'm not leaning against it. I'm just saying, like, when there are certain situations in which I just don't want to deal with certain problems. And I know that in AutoHotkey, it's not impossible. It's just that it's going to take me too much time. For having a GUI, like, for example, just click on something, that reminds me on my banking application, like, they have a very stupid bug in which I want to see transactions that haven't been cleared yet. The website, when you click on see uncleared transactions, it doesn't show anything. And then on the website, I just have to set one of the values to true. The get values, that they have a lot of get the query parameters. There's one of them that they have this bug that they don't put the true there. You type it, hit enter, and now everything shows up. Well, I'm just gonna have a thing that whenever I control C, right, it checks if what I copied is a URL from that page, and it would just replace that and put the true and put it in and just navigate. You can do something like that with AutoHotkey. You don't need a GUI. You could probably monitor when they copy something, or if they are in a specific page, you can check the window title and say, if I'm in this window title and they hit this button or whatever, automatically then load whatever you needed to load, right? Because you already have
that. So it's a client system, and we need to get, like, I need to download the orders, I need to download pictures, I need to download history. So those functions don't exist. They're discoverable by us, but the buttons are kind of hidden to us.
Okay.
So that's what I was saying. If I had like an add-on GUI, they would just open up the AutoHotkey GUI, and there's 3 buttons or 4 buttons to say download orders, download history, download pictures.
And it would just do the process for you. But again, how are you authenticating them? Like they would be authenticated already.
Yep, they're in. They know that's an add-on for the website. So unless they're on the website,
right? Okay, let me show you this
solution.
It is, and actually, not a bad idea. This is exactly what I do here. So this is a shortcut that I created. It is just a bookmark. It's what do you call it, Joe? Like a bookmarklet or something?
Yeah, right.
Right, and that has some JavaScript in there that goes and finds a very specific button that it's usually at the bottom of the page, and it just clicks on it.
Oh, so you had like 3 bookmarks, and you could just run the Java through there.
Exactly, and then you just click on them. Well, depending on how much JavaScript it is, I think there is a limit as to how long that could be. But if it is, in my case, that is a very small bookmarklet that, let me just do it
and
here.
I could have a folder with the 3 buttons inside of it, and that just
exactly,
and they just ding, ding,
right.
Ding.
In this case, it was just a document query selector, the correct selector for the thing, if you have one, right? And then in the end, I would just click on it.
All right.
Right. So that was a very simple solution for me. You have to follow certain rules here. Oh, let me see. You do have to start the bookmarklet with JavaScript, and then you put your JavaScript.
Okay.
And so that's the URL. It's just something that you can. First of all, I tested it on the console, right? So I knew that the console worked. Then I went to the navigation bar, put JavaScript, put the code that I had in the console there. If you hit enter and it works, then you can just save it as a bookmarklet. And now that's a button. And then you can have a function, folder that has the 3 buttons that you want. That's another quick and dirty solution for those type of things.
I'd still say consider looking at Rafadium, because you have much more control and can really connect to the DOM directly and inject that JavaScript without
you don't even have to have anything on the browser or anything, right?
And by the way, recently we created a Google Maps tool, and it is also doing JavaScript through WebView too.
Okay.
Let me are you good on this topic, Jürgen? We're good?
Yes, I appreciate it so much, guys. Thanks.
I'm gonna stop the recording and start it, and then Irfan, why don't you do a quick demo? Members get unlimited access to 466 plus hours of video lessons packed with AHK insights to binge learn whenever inspiration hits. Get insider savings, 25% off courses, scripts, and done-for-you AHK jobs, making premium tools affordable and accessible.